Welcome back to another episode of Spittin' Hoops, a weekly, bi-weekly, in-person, online podcast hosted by me and my co-host Anthony right here. It's been an exciting few days of free agency. Both of our teams, the Celtics and the Warriors, have been pretty absent, to be honest. But around the league, there's been a lot going on. Anthony, how you feeling? How have these first 2 days of free agency been treating you?
Man, it's been a good first few days of free agency. Expected, nothing out of this world big, but nonetheless very, very exciting. I think our big fish that we have yet to see, Dame and Harden, those guys haven't come in yet. So definitely looking forward to some more stuff. But for now, we got a lot of little stuff to talk about. Looking forward to it.
Yes, sir. This is my favorite time of the year. Like, I'm an absolute cap space nerd, contracts nerd, etc. So I love seeing like who's getting signed for what, like non-guaranteed, etc. Anyways, so I'm hyped. I don't know if you could tell. We're just gonna get right into it. We're gonna kind of go through like first day transactions, second day transactions, and then we'll get into extensions and then just other talking points we want to get to. The first move that we got on the first night of free agency was Draymond Green re-signing with the Warriors, 4 years, 100 mil, with a player option in year 4. So honestly, he gets the 100 mil he was looking for. If he plays 4 years, he'll touch like all of that money. If he retires in the middle, we'll see. But that was pretty interesting to me. I mean, that must have meant there was a market for him.
Yeah, I give this an A. Absolutely. No doubt. Certified, beautiful contract. 4 years, 100 mil. That is fantastic money for a player of his caliber. We have to keep in mind that Draymond Green is a guy that works so well with Steph. And when those two are able to play together and be in sync, that's where his role in the offense comes. So a lot of people are like, oh, well, how's he going to be helpful, productive in the offense? He can't really shoot. He's never really been able to shoot. He's never really relied on his athleticism. He's just a defensive IQ guy, and it's perfect. It's consistent with what the Warriors have been doing. Why change something that's been so successful over the years? So I'm a big fan of this move. And even though, his player option, he'll probably opt in when he's 37 years old. But even that, like, I think of a guy like Al Horford, and Al Horford's 37, 38 years old, and he's productive minutes on the Celtics. So if a former defensive player of the year is going to be 37, he's working with Steph and Clay, I'm all here for it.
Yeah, and Draymond hasn't been able to shoot since the 2015-16 season where he shot 40% from three. And
Game 7, baby.
yeah, and that had what, like 40, he was like 40, 15, and 10 basically in the game 7, and they still lost. But Draymond's never been able to shoot, and he's never been athletic. Like when he was younger, he was a little bit more athletic and he was a better defender because of it. But he's just a pure IQ player. He's basically been 7 assists a game for like a decade straight, right? Like I think at some point, if you don't know how he fits into an offense, like I don't know. He's just been showing it to you for a while. He's a passer. He's not a scorer, but that's not his value. And I think it's a pretty good contract compared to some of the other contracts we'll get to. Next move is Chris Middleton re-signing 3 years, 102 mil with the Bucks. Obviously, he turned down his player option. And on the last pod, we were like, that must mean he's got money coming. Here's the money.
Here's some money. Solid, little less money total. I know that you have some concerns with Middleton. I might have gone for a 2-year guy instead, but I think this is okay with where they're at. Giannis and Middleton have been playing together for a decade now. So in a different way, but on the same kind of lines with Draymond Green, a veteran is re-signing with a team that he won a championship with. So hopefully his health can get back to a place where it's been. We've seen guys in the past be able to have an early mid-30s kind of career resurgence when we thought they were done for. So I think this is a good sign too, that it's looking like the band is getting back together from Milwaukee. So how would you rate this?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I don't rate Middleton too highly, but if you let him walk, you wouldn't be able to replace him on anything. And then it's like his player option was 40 mil this year. And so you're basically paying 30 million a year in year 2 and year 3 of that, right? So I don't think it was a huge deal. I'd probably rather Middleton and than Porzingis, for example. And like next year, Middleton's 30 mil, just like Porzingis. It's just this first year, it's going to hit a little harder. I thought it was totally fine. Not tripping at all. Kuzma back on the Wizards, 4 years, 102 million. So an extra year for him to get to that 102 million mark. I thought this was good. I predicted this to happen on the last pod. I think the money kind of dried up.
Yeah, and whatever it looks like now, they kind of have some sort of small core. Don't think they're going for wins this year. Definitely not going for wins this year. But I might be drafting them in fantasy this year, man. That's a little secret right there. I think these Wizards guys are going to be killing it. So big money and definitely worth that money for sure. So
Yeah,
don't
it's
have
like
too much else to say about that. Yeah,
yeah, it completely. And even if he's bad, it's a totally tradable contract. Like he's
right.
fine. And even if he's good, you're going to be able to cash in on that tradable contract. So I thought it was a great move for both guys. And should it go well, I mean, Kuzma and Poole, that's fun for DC, to be honest. Dude, they might be as good as they were last year, honestly, the Wizards.
Dude, they might. And honestly, another thing I was thinking of, shout out to Kuzma for being $2 million better than Draymond Green. I hadn't thought about it like that before.
Yeah. I mean, you can say that. Moving from there, so we got Bruce Brown. This was a big signing. There was a mystery team probably lurking for Bruce Brown. I think a lot of teams were clearing cap space for him. People like the Kings, that was where I thought he was going to go to. And here he goes to the Pacers, 2 years, 45 million, so 17.5 million a year. And there's a team option in year two. Low risk for the Pacers, and they had the cap space. At the end of this contract, they're going to have the ability to sign him to a pretty big contract should they want to keep him around. And if you're Bruce Brown, I mean, 17 million in year one. The Nuggets could sign you to like 10 million in year one, right? So,
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think this is solid. I always feel a little bit iffy when a team that is nowhere near contention signs a guy that could be useful on a contending team. But I do think this is a pretty tradable contract. And if he can keep going with his production, then it'll definitely be very helpful. So I get it. I mean, I think Bruce Brown's a fantastic player. And I think he'll definitely opt into that second year, especially if it goes well. It'll be exciting for sure with this new squad they got brewing.
well, yeah, so it's a team option in year two. So actually, like, if it goes bad, the Pacers can just cut him, like, for no matter what. If it goes well, but the Pacers are bad, they can just trade him at the deadline, and then the acquiring team can figure out what they want to do with the team option. And then if he's good and the Pacers are good, you probably just want to keep him around and maybe even extend him at the end of the year two. I thought it was a really low risk contract, and it was like a good use of cap space, to be honest. Overall, I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there are quite a few of these types of contracts, those low risk, lots of cap space, maybe bigger than a team was expecting free agency signings. And Bruce Brown's definitely an example of one of those guys.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I do get the criticism where it's like, oh, it's good, like guy who's a key contributor on a championship team fully cashing out to a like kind of mid team. But I think the Pacers are better than mid, to be honest. I don't know what you
Yeah,
think.
yeah. I just don't, their ceiling is kind of
Yeah,
whatever, maybe playing team. So that's the one thing I'm thinking about. But I mean, hey, shout out to him too. I mean, he balled out in the finals and he deserves that money.
totally agree. Now we're moving on to Portland. They re-signed Jeremy Grant for 5 years, 160 million. I'll have more to say on this when we get to Dame, but this is a rough contract off the bat, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. My analysis in 5 letters. Yikes.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Oh baby, what is you doing? This one didn't really make sense. I don't see where they were going. And I had also heard that they still had the ability, it was in name only, and then Dame requested, and then they signed the contract. So they're all in on this guy, and he's a great player. He averaged 20. He's a great defender. He's only 27 years old. Definitely solid, but this is the same issue with like Bruce Brown, but on absolute steroids, where it's like we're tossing the farm at this guy. And do we think that Portland is in a place to be this good this quick? And I don't know, man.
So I think the other teams were definitely lining up to offer him 4 year max contracts, but like you can just offer him a 4 year max and try to keep him around. Like I think they were worried about losing the asset, but the thing is, like, if you're this worried about losing the asset that you signed him to a 5 year contract, he's there till he's 34. Like that is a ridiculous like length because he's probably at the back end of his prime already. Like, so
Right.
that was pretty ridiculous to me. And also it's like you're scared of losing the asset, but then if you keep the asset for like, and it's a 5 year contract for this much money, you're kind of losing the asset anyways by re-signing him to this sort of money. Like you can't trade him. Like this is an insane contract. I think he's a good player. Get your money. The
Yep.
decision to leave Denver like so many years ago and go to the Pistons, cash out there, go to the Blazers, cash out there, like for him has been such a good decision. But yeah,
Oh yeah. Personally, for him, that's fantastic. Keep doing what you're doing.
absolutely
Yeah.
agree. So our first actually shocking move, I thought the Bruce Brown move was like pretty like curious, but that wasn't really to a contender. Our first like actually
Yeah.
surprising move to me for a contender was Gabe Vincent to Los Angeles Lakers, and it's a 3 year, $33 million contract. I thought it's very cheap. At the end of this contract, if he's really good, they'll have bird rights on him. They'll be able to keep him for whatever they want. That's a while down the road. But I thought this was a great deal. He was great in the playoffs. I could not believe they got like this sort of discount on them, to be honest.
The Lakers needed shooting. That was one of the things that kind of got them in the Western Conference Finals. Even though it was a sweep, all those games were relatively close, and the Lakers were up by double digits in multiple of them, I believe. So this is a guy that can really help kind of take the temperature down. It's one of those guys who, you're up by 20 and then the lead gets down all the way to 8 and you're like, uh-oh. And then he hits a 3 on a broken possession. You're like, it's back to 11. You're like, okay, we got this. So this is definitely a guy maybe that they're hoping can replace what they thought Michael Beasley was going to be, or Michael Beasley can kind of help step it up. But that's another guy to talk about. But love this trade, completely thrown off by this trade. And as a Celtics fan, I saw just how devastating this guy was in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this signing was like really good. I think he might be better than D'Lo, to be honest, like already. And D'Lo's going to get paid more than him. I mean, we'll get to his extension later. I thought it was a great move. I thought they also were kind of missing like the point guard who can orchestrate when need be, but he's also kind of shoot first, to be honest. Like he will take a lot of shots, which is totally fine. I think the Lakers do kind of need that, to be honest. Pesky defender. He can play in crunch time, even though he's small. I thought it was a great move. I was really surprised that was his market. If I'm Toronto, I think Toronto got Dennis Smith or Dennis Schroeder on
Yeah.
like 2 years, 30 million or 3 years. Yeah, 2 for 26. You're telling me Dennis Schroeder is getting paid more than Gabe Vincent next year? It's kind of that's kind of shocking to me.
Yeah.
Next move, Kyrie goes back to Dallas for 3 years, 126 million. Kind of surprised by this. Didn't know what his market was, but also Dallas couldn't afford to lose the asset. Made sense both sides. I just don't think this team is going to be that good, to be honest.
I mean, anytime you have the chance to have a talented player on your team like him, we'll see if him and Luka can cook up something. Obviously, injury histories are a big deal with him. We've seen the off the court stuff where he gets in trouble and things of that nature. And but on paper, Kyrie Irving, talent wise, is top 10 talent, I would say. Obviously, not a top 10 player. And his ability to create shots is unbelievable. So where the Pacers need to keep doing their work, or sorry, rather the Mavs is on the defensive end and rebounding in size. So, but this is, I think, the one of the best point guards that they had out there to get, and so they got him. Is it a bit of an overpay? I don't know. Probably not. Maybe a little bit, but he's still young enough. He's 30, so I think Kyrie Irving, a 33-year-old Kyrie Irving in his final year, that's fine with me. He's just so talented, so it's a tough asset not to give up.
Yeah, you just can't give up the asset. It was just like they had to sign this contract based off the trade they made at the deadline. Like it is what it is. Like I wouldn't have done it, but so be it.
Yeah,
Like, or I wouldn't have done the trade, but after the trade, you kind of do have to re-sign him.
totally. And now we're about to talk. Yeah, this guy that we're about to mention that you're going to name drop made $4 million extra over. So that's surprising.
Yeah, I mean, Van Fleet goes to Houston for 3 years, 130 mil. That's a lot of money, Anthony. What's your first thoughts on this?
A lot of money. This is a bit similar to what I was kind of thinking about what you'd mentioned with a team that just has a lot to play. The Rockets they're under no pressure. There's no quick, hey, you got to get this done. The Rockets definitely need veteran presence. And number one, we already covered Amen Thompson getting signed. Fantastic signing for them. And number two, they just need that veteran presence to kind of keep them, a little steadier in the locker room. So It's definitely an overpay for what his value is in general, I'd say, right? Like in the abstract. But you know, they had flirted with 2 years and 83. I might have preferred that if I'm the Rockets on the Rockets side, but I think for overall, it's not the worst contract in the world. And if he can, what is he, 30, 29 years old? He's kind of around there. So if he can just help with that veteran presence and get them some wins, I guess this is where they're gonna start to try to push for the playoffs. So, or at least the play-in. So I don't know. It's an interesting trade for sure. What do you
Yeah,
think of it?
to be honest, I mean, I thought it was a good signing. Like, I think the market would have that's a lot of money. Anthony was for like, I didn't think the Raptors didn't want to lose that asset, and then they kind of just bid it up the price. Is probably what ended up happening. I think he probably wanted to leave. I don't think Houston's ideal for him, but he's gonna get a chance to be kind of built around. He's gonna get a chance to elevate all these guys with a ton of potential, be kind of the face of the franchise. With someone else that we're gonna get to later. But overall, like I thought it was a good signing. If I'm Houston, like this is the sort of thing I wanted them to spend their money on. They already had a lot of guys. Like they didn't need quantity of role players.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I thought it was a great move by them. And Van Fleet, to be honest, I really like him as like a just a winning player. If you look at his percentages, right, it's not pretty. Some of his like from the field and sometimes from three. But I think he's a really good player, and he's also going to benefit from a better situation where they're working around him. I think. So I'm really in on this move for both parties. I think it's also a fronted contract, so year 3 is going to be lower than year 1, which I think is smart as well. And yeah, I just liked this move a lot. Houston made some other moves which were a little bit crazy to me, but again, we'll get to that later.
Yes, sir.
So that caps off day 1. So that was all in day 1, right? So lot right there. Day 1 of free agency. Day 2 of free agency, we get a surprising move is that Austin Reeves re-signs to the max contract that the Lakers could offer him. He was a restricted free agent. He didn't have any other offers. No other team offered him an offer sheet. So he goes back to the Lakers on 4 years, 56 million. I thought this is a fantastic deal. Like we saw how good he was in the playoffs, to be honest. Like, you know, he's not going to be the second best player in a championship team, right? But he's going to get paid basically 12 million a year for the next 4 years or like something like that. Like it's a pretty good deal. He shoots well, defends his position at least. He can also distribute. This is a great deal. Like I was shocked. The Spurs, they're still right now sitting around 20 million in cap space. I don't know why they didn't try to go get him. And even if they don't get him and he wants to re-sign with the Lakers and the Lakers match that offer sheet, at least you made the Lakers pay extra. Like this contract is fantastic.
It's a great contract. And this was a guy where he did have some cold streaks in the playoffs too. However, this is a guy where LeBron could be like, okay, I need a playmaker on the team right now, and who's going to step up? I think that there are guys who sign with the Lakers or sign with a team that LeBron has played for, and there's a hope or an expectation that he can take some possessions off, especially later in his career, and he doesn't typically tend to get that. So when we're seeing Austin Reeves, who I mean, obviously AD led that charge, but he damn near co-led them into the playoffs, into the play-in with that wild record at the end of the season when LeBron was hurt. So he's shown that he's worthy of this money. He clearly trusts LeBron, and LeBron clearly trusts him. He's in his 3rd year. And so I think this is a great. He's obviously only going to get better. We can't say obviously, but trajectory shows that he's going to get better as a player. And so man, the Lakers are starting to get some depth, you know, and they're looking good. They're looking good. I think they have, you know, him and LeBron have great chemistry. And so I think this is perfect. This is what they needed.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can do this now. This was the last big Lakers move. So the Lakers end up with getting Gabe Vincent. Obviously, they re-sign Austin Reeves. They re-sign D'Angelo Russell, Rui Hachimura, and then they go out and they get Torian Prince, Jackson Hayes, and Cam Reddish. They've got like 7 or 8 actual NBA players. When they started last year, like the season, they probably didn't. D'Lo, I'm out on D'Lo, to be honest, in general. But I think you could trade him at the deadline potentially. That is one thing. I think the Lakers are looking great, man. Torian Prince is also, he can play 10, 15 minutes in a playoff game. Like, I don't know.
They got their depth. I think I'm a little bit more forgiving on D'Lo than you might be, just because I've seen where that potential is, and I like to hope if you're a point guard, you haven't lost it quite yet. And I don't know, maybe he's back. He got back to LA. He got his feet under him. I think we have to remember he really did. He was a key part of that playoff push for them. He definitely cooled off towards the end, and maybe that was a function of teams being able to figure out what he's good at, what he's not. He just couldn't get his shot down, and so I'm a little bit higher on that. So I do like the trade, like you said. He is an asset they can flip should they need it. Rui, I think, is a great signing, very steadying presence for them, and like you said, Torian Prince is just another vet that they're gonna play well with. So I think the Lakers overall, they've had a pretty good offseason. They didn't need to go get a superstar, and they didn't, and they're looking good.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think in the regular season they're going to be like a top 2 or 3 seed or something. I just think their top guys are going to kind of miss too much time, but they do have a very like playoff ready roster, like even just off the rip. And who knows, maybe they make some moves like come deadline time. But yeah, I don't see them being like a 55 win team or 60 win team or something like that, to be honest. But that's just purely out of their best 2 players probably missing some time here and there. But come playoffs, I mean, they're going to look good. They're going to look good, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to see how it all kind of shakes out. Maybe if there was a way where they could flip something at the trade deadline and get some asset that could really take on a little bit more of the load with the injury concerns of their top 2 guys. I think that's one thing I'd like to see. But let's assume health is there. I think that this is a great looking roster. It's very reminiscent of what they looked like when they won the chip in the bubble.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I'd love to see a few more 3-and-D guys on the roster, though, to be honest. As much as Rui, like, oh yeah, like go get your money. 3 years, 51 million for him is a lot, and like you're depending a lot on him now. He also can cover as a big man, and that's like extra value. But yeah, moving on. Brook Lopez, 2 years, 48 million, back to the Bucks. So the rumor for the longest time was he was going to the Rockets, and you can kind of see it in the contract price. I mean, 2 years, basically 50 million. So the Bucks kind of bring the whole squad back with him and Middleton, and I guess they're just going to run it back.
This one I'm not as hot on. I think that's a lot of money to throw at a guy who's 36, who dealt with some injuries, and his shooting isn't what it used to be when he was first on the Bucks and got there, and he was Splash Mountain. I don't think of him like that guy anymore. Obviously, he's a great player. He's a high IQ guy. He's a great locker room guy. He's what you want in a basketball player. I just worry a bit about his age, and I think that contract's a bit pricey.
I'm gonna agree with you, but I also think once you re-sign Middleton, like I don't know what the other routes were to upgrading your team. So at some point, maybe this was just the best route is to run everything back. As much as the contract's expensive, it's only 2 years, like so be it. Like I don't know what else they really could have done. Are you gonna sign and trade Middleton somewhere that would have been worth it? And same with Lopez. Like I don't know, probably not, to be honest. And then they're kind of old. I'm kind of out on the Bucks in general. I think I've been on this train for a little bit now. Like, I think they're kind of old as a whole squad. But I think they also kind of had to do this, if that makes sense. We'll see. They better win a chip this year or next year, or else it's going to get really ugly for them pretty quickly.
My runway with them is a little bit longer. Maybe we'll do a deep dive pod on each team and that kind of thing. I'm sure we'll do some sort of conversations about what all these teams look like at the end of towards the end of the offseason. But anytime you have a top 2 player in the league, I'm kind of okay with what you're doing. And things move so quick. We just talked about how surprising the Lakers look now after last season being like, what the heck are they going to do? And they figured it out. So I can't not see the Bucks kind of stranded in the water without an out to it. I feel like they should be able to figure this out if their GM and the front office can make some good moves. When you got a guy like Giannis, obviously you have to, and but it makes things a little bit easier than if your best player is somebody not quite of his caliber.
Oh, of course. I just think this is like the back end of their timeline with like this core. Like, should they reinvent themselves? Like, so be it. Like, that's what their GM's going to get paid the big bucks for. Like, kind of after this year, next year, like, you're not going to be able to compete with Middleton at what age 33? Like, 34, and then like Brook Lopez, age 38. And Giannis also hasn't even been that healthy himself, right? So they're gonna have to kind of go through a reinvention process of some sort. Obviously having Giannis is going to make it easier. So, you know, we'll see how that goes. They also re-signed Jay Crowder, if I remember correctly. Don't know what he's up to, but yeah.
Don't love that. Yeah.
Is Jay Crowder, like whatever. Russell Westbrook, 2 years, 8 million, back to the Clippers. Don't have much to say on it. That's fine. Kind of some vibes and some energy with when the big guys will be out, you know.
I absolutely love this deal. When I saw this number, it's 8, but it is a bit closer to 7.8 or something. I was like, dang. And it's a player option too in the second year, I think. And I think this is fantastic. He is so much better than I think people will give him credit for because of how bad he looked last year. And I think both of us were talking about waxing poetically about his ability to play well and meaningful minutes in the playoffs against the Suns. So I'm a huge fan of this. Paul George himself, too, on his podcast said he was a huge fan of this. So I love how low value this trade was for a guy that is so much better than I think a lot of the guys we've talked about so far. So I'm personally a big fan, especially if you can get back to those like defensive roots where what made him so big in the first place. I don't know if that'll happen, but I think when a guy of his caliber is humbled and he can kind of go in the mellow route of, okay, I used to be the guy. I'm not the guy anymore. And now I'm on a roster where I can really just ball out. That team doesn't have big personalities. And I think for him to be able to have a big personality while understanding, you know, I'm not as good as Kawhi Leonard and I'm not as good as Paul George, but I can definitely be, you know, the engine that keeps this thing going when we're not feeling this hot. So personally, I love this trade, or I love this signing, especially because of the money. If it was more, I would have been like, but 2 years, 8, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any hard feelings about it. I just don't think he's very good. And then like if Russ ever starts playing defense, we'll talk about it then. But like, I'm not really like counting down till it happens, you know? Like, I don't know. I do think he does like on this team is a really good fit because their stars miss so much time with injury, and he's definitely a guy where you can be like, hey man, here's 30 minutes for us. Let's see what you can do. Like, I think that's like a good situation. I think it's a W for all parties here, to be honest. Yeah, like I don't think Russ is that good, to be honest. Like, but so be it. Bigger moves coming up here. So these are the big moves. I think some of the more controversial ones. Dylan Brooks goes to Houston Rockets in a sign and trade from the Memphis Grizzlies. 4 years, 80 million. The Grizzlies get back basically a big traded player exception, as well as Josh Christopher. Yet to see if they waive Josh Christopher or not. This is crazy. This is crazy money. I'm still waiting to see. Like, I was kind of anticipating it being unguaranteed year by year. Like, they could just cut him whenever, because that's what they did with the Jock Landale contract, where they gave Jock Landale like 4 years, 32 million, but they can just cut him whenever they want for like no penalties. I kind of thought that was going to be the case with this Dylan Brooks contract, and then nothing ever happened. I was like, oh my God, they really signed him 4 years, 80 million.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of this one. For Houston, good for Dylan Brooks for getting his money. I don't see him. Maybe I'm still in like 2015 mode where I think 20 mil is a ton of money. But I'm not a fan of this contract. I don't think he's worth that amount of money. I think he's a great defender. I don't know if that's what they need. I mean, obviously it is what they need, but I don't know. I don't see that vision. He's a veteran. That's helpful, I guess. But maybe I'm kind of letting my personal, feelings kind of get into this in terms of how he was talking a lot last year against the Lakers. And every time he kind of got burned, he wouldn't talk anymore. And so I don't know. We'll see about Dylan the villain, but I thought this was an interesting trade. I do think it's a lot of money to throw at a guy, even if you have so much money. Like, I don't know. I don't have too much to say about this besides that, bro.
I could not believe it. I mean, dude, if you just look at the comparing contracts that happened throughout the offseason, like Austin Reeves for the same amount of years, 56 million, would much rather have Austin Reeves. I know the fit is totally different, right? Like they want to bring in an older guy a defensive guy. And like, for example, the Rockets wouldn't give Austin Reeves like 4 years, 56 million like the Lakers did. So I can't fault them for that
Right.
specifically. But just go get Dante DiVincenzo at that point. Like, I don't know.
Right.
I don't love it. I don't love the fit. It's not really like I know the Rockets have alleged like good 3-point shooters between like Jalen Green and like Van Fleet and like Thompson, hopefully, and like Şengün can kind of space the floor. But like Dylan Brooks is like a minus shooter. Like he's like not a good shooter at all.
Yeah.
So unless he goes back to being like kind of the 35-36% shooter I think he was at some point, that's fine. But like if he just is running back what he was last year, like this is not a responsible contract. Like this is like a ridiculous contract in my opinion.
Yeah. It seems like Houston just kind of got excited after the Van Vliet signing and how well their draft was. And they were like, okay, let's just go for it. And that, yeah. So not high on it, but anyways, life goes on
But I
in
also
Houston.
think like I think they probably so if you notice it's like a 4 year 20 million a year contract. I think they were thinking that they were going to get Brooke Lopez at that like basically 2 years 40 million rate, and then that didn't work out. So then I think they like shifted. Um
Yeah.
and Dylan Brooks, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, who are they bidding against? Who with cap spaces left that's like I need Dylan Brooks through my doors. Like that's my other thing that
Yeah.
I'm always thinking about is that like the Spurs are the only ones who could have offered him a similar contract, or the Grizzlies, to be honest. But the Grizzlies already said we don't want you back. And it's like,
They're good.
what are we? I don't know. I'm still
Yeah.
trying to figure that
What do
one
we do?
out. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe Houston knows something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe they'll be the third team in one of these big trades coming up. We'll see. I don't know.
Right. Right.
Moving on, Dante DiVincenzo leaves the Golden State Warriors. 4 years, 50 million to the Knicks. Anthony, do you have any first thoughts about this? Right before this also was Obi Toppin getting traded for 2 second-round picks to the Pacers, so you could kind of see the writing on the wall with the roster spots and such. But any thoughts, Anthony?
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I don't still curious about if the Knicks are at all involved in any Harden talks. I know we haven't heard about that, so I'm curious if this is like a flipping contract. But if they do keep him, I mean, it's really cool with Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart to have that trio back together after that championship run. So I think we might start seeing the best version of Dante DiVincenzo. And I think he's a good player and he's a solid player. So I think it's another good role piece. I don't, is it going to move the needle for them? Probably not. But is it another good piece that'll fit if another guy gets hurt? Yeah, I think so. So, yeah, nothing too crazy either way on this one.
Yeah, like I mean, if he ends up being bad, you can move him. Like it's not that much money. I just don't understand. Like you have Quickly, you have Grimes, you have Hart, you have those are 4 guys who are good right there, like who are guards primarily. And then you're also going to bring in DiVincenzo, another kind of undersized plus defender. I feel like they have the profile of this player basically in Quentin Grimes already. Um, I'm a Warriors fan. I watched DiVincenzo last year. I thought he was good. Wasn't tripping too hard when he left, and then I'm really not tripping after seeing how much money he got. Yeah. They can't trade him. If they sign him completely and they finalize the paperwork from that point on, they won't be able to trade him until January 15th.
Oh, okay.
So, we'll have to see what happens there. I thought that move was pretty curious. Like, I think DiVincenzo is a good fit, though, in theory. It's just like the minutes are weird. Like, I think in his minutes, he'll be good, though, to be honest. Like, I think it's a good fit there. It's just like you got Quickly, Grimes, Hart, Brunson, and now you got DiVincenzo. It's like, dude, how are we playing these guys? And they already should have been playing Quickly more, in my opinion. And yeah, I'm a little confused with that minute setup. We'll see. We'll see what they do.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Finally, we get to the final. This is late yesterday. We've been talking about it. Some big rumors. I texted you also.
Yep.
Dame Lillard.
Here, let me put it down. Let me explain this one.
All right,
so it's not just you sounding like you're capping. So I'm at the gym. I get a Facebook message chat from Max which always just makes my day no matter what. And it's something to the effect of, yo, it's Dame to the Heat. And a few minutes later, bada bing, bada boom, what do we see? It's Dame has requested a trade, and his top priority is Damian Lillard to the Heat. So shout out Nostradamus once again for calling something right before it happens. Very impressive. Max, how are you feeling about what the whole Dame situation is right now?
I mean, so actually on our last podcast, one of the sections we didn't get to is I wanted to talk about how I didn't want to hear Dame in rumors anymore. And I actually muted his name on Twitter. I muted the words Dame and Lillard on my Twitter because I was like, I don't want to see this. But amateur NBA analyst on Twitter, once again, he put out a little tweet. He's like, it's happening. Like, get ready. And no one else had any rumors about it. But I'd kind of been feeling this way for a while. Scoot Henderson, once he got drafted, I think that was officially the time Dame was going to come in and make the trade request. I think it's time. I think it makes sense. The Blazers have no reason to not trade him. They have a new face of the franchise. Dame's given all they can. They tried to win around him. It didn't work out. Time to reset. If you're Dame, they tried to win around you. They couldn't. They couldn't really give you a proper supporting cast. And I think Dame also sometimes wasn't as good as they thought he was, but whatever. Yep. I think he'll end up in Miami. So immediately the report was that Dame is quote unquote focused on Miami and only Miami. And then Portland comes out and is like, we'll be making a trade based off of, the best offer. I think he ends up in Miami, but I don't think it's like for 4 swaps like Brad Beal. I think it's going to be like 6 first-round picks and like Hero, Duncan Robinson. Like that's kind of what I'm thinking this trade package is going to be.
Yeah, it'll need to be a haul. And so with Portland going in one direction, with Miami in a completely different direction in culture, does Miami really want to mortgage their future for a shot at a title run? Should they even get Dame? I mean, I'm scared, of course. But I don't know if this necessarily guarantees them a title. So I think it's interesting. I do think that when the Blazers say we're looking for the best trade available, that is a little bit of talk. I hope that the Blazers kind of have a respect for him after everything he did for that city in terms of really putting Portland on the map and knowing it as Damian Lillard town. So I'm with you. I still think he'll probably end up in Miami, maybe Brooklyn, if not, even though they just re-signed a guy we'll talk about in a sec. So we'll see about cap space. They could still do it. But yeah, it's an interesting spot, and if they get him, I'm going to be scared unless they lose their depth because they lost a lot of guys that I think we'll also talk about too. So it's a bit of an interesting situation there.
Yeah, I mean, they already started losing their depth, if we're going to be honest. Like, I mean, Gabe Vincent and Strus are gone. But also when that happened and they weren't super aggressive in re-signing either one of them, that's one of the reasons I was super tipped off. I was like, oh, they have to be going after a Dame trade. And like that's just kind of what made sense to me. I think it's going to happen to Miami. I don't think Brooklyn's a true contender in this trade situation because it's like they have first round picks to give and whatnot, but what's McCall Bridges and Dame doing for you? You're just kind of making the same mistake as you made with KD and back in the day with getting KG and Paul Pierce. It's like, let's actually build for a little bit, not just try to win off the rip and be a 7th seed again. And if I'm Dame and I'm leaving Portland and I'm going to Brooklyn, I'm going to be pissed. And I'm just going to request a trade again, like basically, So I don't know. I don't think Brooklyn's going to happen. I think the reason Brooklyn's name is getting floated out is that like makes a lot of sense in terms of assets. And then like that can kind of create a bidding war. I think it'll be Miami. I think it'll be a big haul though, to be honest. And yeah, I don't know who's going to be left on Miami, to be honest.
Which is historically we've seen of recent history. That is okay. They've managed to scrap together teams that we thought had no business going anywhere, and with the guys that they have at the helm, they're able to figure it out. So nothing tells me that they can't do that again. That being said, Strus and Vincent really kind of showed their mettle in the playoffs. If they have to lose a Hero or a Caleb Martin, those are going to be guys that you really need, especially Dame's 33 years old, 34. And Jimmy Butler's in that age range too, so it's good for that timeline. But if either of those guys get hurt, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest though, if either of them get hurt, they're kind of screwed anyways, so
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the deal probably ends up being basically like Hero, because I don't think the Blazers want Tyler Hero. I think that's the whole issue with this trade. They already have Anthony Simons. Like Hero's really just redundant. So they need to find a third trade partner for Hero. I think it ends up being Brooklyn probably. You get Hero to Brooklyn. Brooklyn sends something to Portland.
To
That's the
my
team. The
yeah, yeah.
so here, yeah,
Yeah.
Hero to Brooklyn. Brooklyn sends something to Portland. Duncan Robinson goes to Portland as well, and then you have Dame
Mhm.
going to Miami. I think Miami's gonna have to give up like 6 first-round picks, so I think they're going all in as they should. Yeah, with that, that was all the major FA stuff. I mean, we'll get to Max Strus later. He had a sign and trade 4 years, 64 million, I believe. We'll get to that a little bit later when we touch on the Cavs. But there were a lot of extensions, some renegotiations, some rookie extensions, some players we just assumed were going to re-sign who were coming up at the end of their contract. Let's start with Jordan Clarkson. He goes through a renegotiation. Now it's 3 years, 55 million left on his contract, I believe. The extra cap hit's probably going to start this year due to the renegotiation. Good move on either side. Jordan Clarkson's kind of just a Jazz legend now. I kind of like it.
Yeah. I obviously know extremely well what you mean when you say the extra cap hit may begin. But for those people that are listening that have no idea what you're talking about, which again isn't me, can you explain that to them? Like they're an 8-year-old.
Yeah, so like he was supposed to get a certain amount of money this year, right? And then he's signing an extension. And then it depends on the contract. Usually the extension on a renegotiation is saying like we're just renegotiating the whole rest of the contract. So now there's 3 years left. But he had, let's say, 12 million due to him this year. So his extension is going to be 55 million, and he's probably going to get the 12 million and some this year off the rip to kind of space out the 55 million, if that makes any sense at all. It's kind of like in
So
baseball.
okay.
It's kind of like in baseball where you can just kind of add certain like money amounts to certain years to kind of make the cap go well, and you could just kind of keep deferring payments. Yeah, this is kind of like a deferred payment, if you will.
Right. Okay. Okay. Got you. Got you.
So basically, he's
So
got
they could make it.
yeah.
So they own 12 mil. That is not a part of this $55 million. And what you're saying is they can kind of decide where they want to put that money based on what they're doing.
Well, they have 12 mil dedicated to him this
Yeah.
year. That was the original contract, right? And then they're
Well,
like,
this coming okay.
from his previous contract, he had 12 mil, and they were like, "Hey, we know you have 12 mil due this year. Let's renegotiate the rest of this contract, okay? So you're a free agent. You're not actually a free agent, but let's start from zero. Here's a 3 year,
Yeah.
$55 million contract. Okay, yes, I'll take that. So when you're doing a renegotiation, it allows you to kind of so now, although he was supposed to make 12 mil this year, he might actually make 15. But in year 3 of the contract, it's going to be probably a lower number than they would have expected to pay otherwise. So instead of doing, this year he's getting paid 12 mil and then you're going to extend him for 2 years, let's just renegotiate
Yeah.
the whole thing so you can get paid more this year and we can front end your contract. That's usually the rationale is to front end the contract. If does that make any sense?
That makes sense. And now the way you explain that, that's also a fantastic asset if they want to make a move, especially if it's front loaded. That's a great move on the Jazz's part and good for Jordan Clarkson.
Yeah, so the last time before this that we saw a renegotiation was the Pacers with Miles Turner. They re-signed him to a extension like right before the extension deadline last season, like during the season. So then they immediately had some cap space that they weren't going to use, so they just threw it at Miles Turner, and then they're able to kind of scale the rest of his contract differently. Which is smart by them. Sabonis actually also had a renegotiation. So the only other time you would renegotiate someone's contract rather than like front loading it is to give your guy a max extension. This is basically a max extension from Sabonis, 5 years, 217 million. He was only slated to get paid like 20 something this year, so he got a bag. I'm not a believer in Sabonis. I don't know where the market was, but like he was all NBA if I remember correctly. So
He was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good for him. He is right smack dab in the middle of the middle of the beginning of his prime. So I think we do have a bad taste in our mouths based off of how he played in the playoffs, even though he was injured, very injured, honestly, like a broken hand, or a broken wrist. He did look kind of passive and a little bit tentative. There were times where it didn't even look like he wanted to look at the basket. So I think those 7 games definitely left a bad taste in my mouth. However, he did play extremely well during the regular season. I love we got the left-handed team of the Knicks over on the East, and then now we have the left-handed team over on the West of the Kings. So I think him and Fox also have great chemistry. So this is definitely an exciting team based on other moves that we've talked about. That's something that is a little bit frustrating, where if they had maybe a more robust roster around them and lack of Harrison Barnes, I'd be more in favor of this too. But I feel like this is kind of where the market is for a guy like that. And I think we're going to talk about guys in a couple of people who are making similar money that how good are they in comparison to him. So, I see where they're coming from, and I see where you're coming from as well. I don't hate it. And if he can kind of get to the playoffs next year and be like, okay, I got punched in the mouth. Let me get my stuff up. Now I'm a bit more healthy. I'm not as nervous anymore. I didn't get stomped on the chest, and I'll be okay.
So I think that's fair. I'm just, in terms of cap space management, they use some of their cap space to pay Sabonis like this year in the renegotiation, right? And we use some cap space to re-sign Harrison Barnes. And we use cap space to re-sign Trey Lyles, and some cap space to sign this European guy. And it's like, I kind of raged the last podcast because I said, if they are just clearing up this cap space to re-sign Harrison Barnes and renegotiate Sabonis, then this is all stupid. Like, then it was dumb. They basically burned their first round pick to run it all back. And that's what I was worried that they were going to do. And they ended up doing. It's their last chance to make an upgrade, especially now that they just did this renegotiation. They're going to be over the cap for the next 3-4 years. And I don't understand the reason why, like, you would renegotiate now, and rather than, like, he's got one last year. What if he gets hurt this year? What if he tears his ACL? And I guess that could happen at any point in the contract, right? But, like,
right,
you have that leverage. Just wait another year. I think they're worried that if they wait another year and he has a good year, they're gonna have to pay him starting next year 5 years, 250. And they're like, no, instead let's start it this year, 5 years, 220. And I can understand that rationale. I just kind of feel like this was your last chance to double down, to pack a punch your team and just add another guy. And you used it on just re-signing everyone.
Yeah. I personally, this move itself, I think is okay.
Yeah.
But with the context of what they did with their other moves, it is a bit odd, and it's kind of like, hey guys, you got to light the beam for the first time in 17 years. Let's keep this going in a smart, slow way. And so maybe they're just jumping the gun. I don't know.
Yeah, but they're also like, they're both jumping the gun by re-signing all these guys like this, but they're also not jumping the gun because they're not like really cashing in any assets and making trades. Like, they're just running it back. I will say Sabonis is younger than all of us think. He's like 26, 27 right now. 5-year contract starting this year. Yeah. It'll be fine. I'm just not a believer in him come playoff time, but also there's so little bigs, like amount of bigs with that skill set. Even if he's your second best player or third best player come playoff time, that's still valuable, especially for a guy like Sabonis.
Also, that was his first. Wasn't that his first real playoffs? Like, so
I think he made the playoffs at OKC when he was there.
As a second-year guy or whatever. Yeah. So, like, I don't know. We don't have a big enough sample size where I can start kind of casting doubt on him. So, but I get what you mean in terms of, like, against you guys, he was kind of a non-factor. If he had played his standard, I think you guys are losing in 6, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think Sabonis is a guy who can play in a playoff series against the Warriors. Like, I don't think he's going to grow out of that. I just think his skill set is just not, like, I don't know. It's just not good for a series like that. He's not like a particularly like good switching defender. So on that side of it's like and then like rebounding wise, he wasn't out rebounding like Kevon Looney.
He was getting looned, bro. He was getting looned all over.
I think that was also just a bad matchup, though. If Sabonis had come out round 1 and he's playing against like the Suns and he's scoring like 20, he's getting like 20 and on like Ayton, like then we're probably having a whole different discussion, right? So
Yeah.
coming up next, we got 2 rookie extensions for 2 of the brightest young players. These are 2 extensions that are going to start at the end of this year. Halliburton staying with the Pacers 5 years, 260 million. That's with all NBA incentives and such, all-star incentives and whatnot. Desmond Bain, the maximum he could get was 5 years, 207 million. Because he hasn't made an all-star team, and that's what he gets from the Grizzlies as well. Thought both of these were good. That's just like the going rate for these guys. They're both fantastic. So yeah.
Halliburton especially. When you have a guy like that, you got to pay him.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. So yeah, it's a great contract. I don't have too much to say about him. I'm looking forward to seeing. Like I said earlier in the pod, I don't think that the ceiling isn't the second round for this team. It's maybe they sneak in the playoffs. They'll be an exciting team. They were a surprising team this past year before he got hurt. So I love that. Desmond Bain, like you'd said, I'm also on board with that. The Grizzlies have their young core set up. Maybe with Ja getting a chance to kind of step away from the game for a little bit, work on himself. He comes back with a fresh perspective. Steven Adams gets back. He's healthy. I don't know what Brandon Clark's timeline is with his health, but he'll come back. He'll be healthy again. And they got their 3 young guys as their core. So, and Desmond Bain is a lights out shooter. So this is a good move for them.
Yeah, they both would have got the max from any other team. This is the max that their homegrown teams could have offered them. That's what you offer them. It's great that both of these like kind of small market franchises are able to lock up these guys for 5 years. No one's ever rejected the rookie max extension offer, like since the kind of that scaling ended up coming into the NBA, and it's nice to see that continue. So I'm happy for them. LaMelo Ball also signs a similar contract with Charlotte. All 3 of those guys deserving. Very exciting times for these small market teams, to be honest.
Yeah.
Another rookie extension, but kind of one that's starting this year because the Pelicans, we saw them decline Herb Jones's team option in order to re-sign him. Here's him getting re-signed to the maximum that the Pelicans could offer him, which was 4 years, 54 million, which starts now because technically he was a restricted free agent upon them turning down the team option. Great deal. Harrison Barnes went for close to this amount of money on 3 years, right? So I thought it was a great deal.
Yeah, this is a really good deal for them. He's a great defender. He's only going to keep getting better. I don't have too much to say about Herb Jones. I think he's one of those guys you can put on any team and they're going to benefit from his presence. He gives me the vibe of a young guy who's already kind of a veteran mentality type of player. So I think this is great. So good for the Pelicans. Smart move, sound move, and respect to him too for them declining that money so they can go ahead and. I mean, that's not exactly why they did it, but he earned that money for sure.
Yeah, and good moves on everyone's part. I think it's a good fit. Herb Jones is also a great 3-and-D guy. That's exactly what they want. It's funny, like Trey Murphy and Herb Jones are kind of opposites of each other, where one of them is a little bit better defensively, one of them is a little bit better offensively. So that's always fun. Love that. Don't have much else to say about that though. Cam Johnson, 4 years is 108 million. Back to the Nets. Thought that was a good deal. I think he's about as good as Kyle Kuzma. Probably a little bit better defensively, a little bit worse offensively. I like what Brooklyn's doing personally.
I think this is one of the few where our opinion strays a little bit. I do think he's a good player, and maybe I'm still caught in the whole like this is 2015. That's a huge, massive contract thinking. But I don't know if it was because he was lumped in with Mikal Bridges. Maybe I wasn't watching enough Nets basketball post trade deadline, but I think it's fine. It can be a good asset if they need to flip him. But I personally don't think he's as good as Kuzma. So I mean, good for him, I guess. But I don't really come away with much of a takeaway from this. I thought it was a pretty big contract, but the Nets got cap space and they got room to play around. So I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's not as good as Kuzma. I just thought he's like super efficient since coming in the Nets. I mean, in the playoffs, he's averaging like 43% from 3, 50% from the floor in the playoffs, 19 a game. And also over the course of all of last year, he was 40% from three, just like he was the year before, on increased like basically usage and shots and whatnot. It's pretty rare to see a guy's like percentages go up as he gets more shots. And like at first on the Nets, it wasn't really the case. He struggled a bit, but come playoff time, I mean, the playoffs was about as good as he's ever looked. I know they got beat, obviously. But I think there's also a lot of room for growth. I know he's on the older end. Obviously, he's 27, if I remember correctly, which does sneak up on you a little bit. But I think he's going to be good. 4 years, 108 mil. They're going to have control of him over his whole prime. It's not a move the needle signing, right? They're still the Nets. But again, it's flippable. He'll be good. They don't have their own first round picks, so they also don't have an incentive to be bad. So I thought it was good. Outside of that, we got the Raptors. They get two extensions going. One for Jakob Pertl. I mean, he was technically a free agent. We just kind of all saw the extension coming. 4 years, 80 million. And then Gary Trent, an unannounced multi-year extension after he opted into his player option. I don't know. I think it's all weird, man. Don't really know what the Raptors are doing, but they traded for Pirtle. They traded a first round pick or two, if I remember correctly. Kind of had to re-sign him.
Yeah, this to me also signals that they're probably, because Pirtle is what, 26, so he's still relatively young. So they got a lot of young guys. This, it feels like the whole league was ready for them to zig, go ahead and sell all their players. But besides Van Fleet, this maybe leads me to believe that, even though I did also see a tweet recently talking about Siakam's name is heating up in trade rumors, and if so, then what are we doing at all? But this to me would suggest that they're leaning into Siakam and Anunoby getting better, and this is going to be the team that they rock with for a bit, and maybe they can kind of push for the playoffs. So that's my best guess as to why they're doing this. But maybe they're also going to be like, okay, we're not going anywhere, and maybe there's some teams that have younger guys on more attractive contracts that they would rather have instead to start a rebuild or something of that nature. The team that has more picks, I don't know what that team is, so maybe they can make some trades. Kind of weird. I don't really think, like you said, I don't think this moves the needle for them. I do like Gary Trent. I think he's a great shooter, and I like Jakob Poeltl a lot. I love going onto that NBA game every single morning and trying my best playing that game. But I don't know what. Yeah, I guess 4 for 80 is good for Jakob.
Okay, let's say they re-sign okay, they did re-sign everyone. They got Gary Trent, Pirtle. I believe they signed they signed Schroeder, but they signed someone else too. I'm blanking on. What's the ceiling for that team in your eyes? Like, I think it's like a pretty mid team.
Six seed is the ceiling.
Yeah.
Six seed is what the Hawks did the Celtics this year, probably.
I could see them being like a 5 seed, maybe the Knicks or the Cavs, one of the two is just plays worse or has injuries, but like,
do they win a first round series?
No, God, no. Oh, God, no. You think a team led by Siakam's winning a first round series?
I mean, if they make it to a 5 seed,
I mean, it's on the card, right? Like they'd have a chance. I would just be extremely surprised, to be honest. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe they have something else cooking. I don't know what else they have going on, but
that's the thing. I definitely think they will be making a trade at some point. Whether it's one of the fringe guys that they have, like I don't know, some of the role guys, or even like Anunoby. I really feel like an Anunoby's trade's coming. I don't know why. We'll have to see. I just think he has too much value on the trade market, and I also, if we saw some reports over the last few days that he like wants a bigger like offensive role. It's just like a weird report to send out when you just got a new coach. So I don't know. A little bit of a weird thing there. So I think Anunoby or Siakam potentially is gone. In which case, just like you said, then I can understand these moves even less. We'll have to see what they get in return, but yeah, the Raptors.
I don't know if I have a take or just like an observation. I don't think that the Raptors, were like, hey, Kawhi, we're expecting you to come back after you win a chip. But how often does a player win a chip and then they're like, all right, peace? Granted, it's a very unique situation. He only had 1 year there. They took their shot and they nailed it. Congratulations. This just feels like they're almost like in the remnants of the post Kawhi championship, and they just don't really know exactly what to do. And I think that's kind of why they're stuck. Him leaving, obviously, do what you want. You're a free agent. I do think that kind of like messed with them a little bit because they were really hoping that he was going to resign with them. Hey, you just won a championship. This country absolutely loves you. And he said, nah, I'm out. Peace. And now I think, they dealt with some weird mediocrity, and I think they're just trying to get their feet back under them because they're used to being a good contending team in the playoffs. They got to superstar or championship level status, and now they're like, okay, wait, what are we now? What do we do?
Yeah, I think they might be a little bit worse than we think in the short term here. Like they obviously lost Nick Nurse and then they lost Van Fleet. And then I think Pirtle was good for them, very good for them actually last year. But is Scotty Barnes gonna I know Scotty Barnes was bad last year, but is it like 100% that he might just not be that good? There's a chance, right? So we will have to see. They picked Grady Dick. That's like enjoyable. I think that's a good fit. Hey, wait, actually, that was crazy. I said that was an enjoyable pick.
I thought nothing of it.
But,
I thought literally nothing of it till you said it, though.
okay.
I will say.
Self-exposed. A little bit of Grady Dick phobia.
Shout out Drake.
Yeah, shout out Drake. But yeah, I don't really know what they're doing, to be honest. But I could really, really see an Anunoby or Siakam trade here. If they're gonna lean into kind of the Scotty Barnes timeline, I think now is the time to do it. And I also don't think I don't know, Pirtle at 4 years, 80 million. I actually like that better than Vucevic at 3 years, 60. I see
definitely.
Yeah, I see what Pirtle's fit is on this team a little bit more and on teams in general. And even though he doesn't score, he does everything else really well. I think he's kind of the epitome of those kind of role players, but he's not really a role player if he's making 20 mil a year. So, we'll see. I think I really think a trade might be coming. I don't know. We'll see. Moving on, Spurs, Wembanyama land. They re-sign Trey Jones. 2 years, 20 million. Thought that was great. And that starts now because he was a restricted free agent. If I remember correctly. Great signing. I thought he was really, really good last year. Actually, I thought it was very underrated.
I'm with you. I love this. He was also on most of my fantasy teams, I think.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. I'm such a Trey Jones guy. I was sad I had to train him in one of my leagues, but I think he's fantastic. I think he's going to get a lot of run. I think he's great value. I think, I'm with you. I think that he's gonna cook, and he's Tyus and Trey, bro. Like they're both just such good quality point guards. So shout out to both of them for getting their money. Don't got too much else to say, but excited to see what he does.
Trey, underrated shooter too. To be honest, I think the fit with Wemby is gonna be great. I don't know. I like the Spurs a lot. We'll see what they do. They have 30 million left in cap space, if I remember correctly. Maybe that's a sleeper Tyler Hero team. I saw them being floated out in Damian Lillard rumors, and all right, let's relax. Let's relax a bit. Yeah. Damian Lillard's not going to the Spurs.
I also saw Utah floated out in Damian Lillard trades I saw today. So,
that's why I kind of think it's on some Jazz. The Jazz are trying to drum up, not the Jazz. The Blazers are trying to drum up interest. But the last time I said that, it was about Beal to the Suns. I thought that wasn't going to happen, and then it did. So,
yeah.
Who knows? Last extension, close to your heart. Wizards legend, Knicks legend, Dallas legend, Kristaps Porzingis. 2-year extension on top of his current $30 million that he's getting paid this year. For a total of basically over the next 3 years, he's getting paid $95 million to stay with the Boston Celtics. Anthony, here you go.
Well, with respect to some of the other guys that we've discussed who've had a 3-year X amount, I think this is pretty good. I'm happy with it. It really matters what they do with the rest of it really matters what they do with Jaylen Brown, essentially. That's kind of where I'm at right now. Because, still waiting for that contract to land. But as long as we're not over the second apron for too long, I'm all in favor of billionaires deciding to spend as much money as they want. Go for it, as long as it doesn't screw us over in terms of our ability to, get a mid-level exception. I think you can explain how that process works better than I can. But seeing what we do with Grant Williams. But Kristaps Porzingis, to me, proved last year that he's definitely a top 50, top 40 type of player, and he fits what we need, and that's a really good contract, especially with how high the cap is. So I'm happy with this. I thought it was going to be more, or I thought he could have commanded more on the market. So I'm happy with this.
Yeah, I mean, I think had he had hit the market right now, I don't know if he would have gotten the 3 for 90 deal. Maybe it would have been like 3 for 80, 3 for 70. But once you guys kind of gave up the smart thing and you guys got first round picks back, you were also in a spot where you kind of had to re-sign him. I also wonder if like the Celtics and Kristaps agents before the trade kind of had the extension figured out in some way.
Totally.
I just kind of wonder, what's the market if you just wait till the end of the year, right? Because he opted in. If you wait till the end of the year, maybe you kind of can get this contract by him anyways. Like, he's a pretty injury prone player. I think teams in general are pretty like off of giving guys like Porzingis like a 4-year, $120 million contract right now. But I just kind of wonder if this would have just been his market anyways. We'll see. I also don't know if like the Celtics basically had like kind of a pre-agreement with Porzingis that if he opted in and got traded to them, that they extend him like this. I think teams are like thinking that far ahead and talking to people that far ahead. But I'm not tripping too hard. Like you're saying, it's $10 million. I mean, it's basically $5 million more a year on his extension than like Brook Lopez got just for the next 2 years. I think they're like pretty different players, but in terms of market value, like Porzingis is probably a way better value on the market than Brook Lopez was, for example.
He's like 8 years younger. He's a few inches taller, and he shot the three really well last year.
And the fit's really good for you guys. I think that's why this contract's kind of more worth it. And like, should you have to move it, it's not a 5-year contract. It's not a Jeremy Grant contract. So actually, who's better right now, Jeremy Grant or Kristaps Porzingis?
Oh, I'm going to say Kristaps Porzingis.
Yeah, man. I mean, even if it's kind of close, I think it's kind of close between the two. But like, Jeremy Grant has 5 years, 160 million left, and Porzingis is younger.
And he's 2 years older. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that rounds out all the major offseason moves. This podcast is getting a little long. Sorry about that, y'all. We just have kind of some side topics that I'd like to discuss just really quickly. The Phoenix Suns, they signed Eric Gordon, Yuta Watanabe, Keita Bates-Diop, Chimezie Metu, Damian Lee, Josh Okogie, Devin Eubanks, or is it Drew Eubanks? I think Devin Eubanks. Devin Eubanks used to play like a long time ago. That's like a Lakers legend from like back in the day, if I remember correctly. But anyways, yeah. I thought these are like about as good signings as any team is getting at the minimum rate. Like Eric Gordon, Watanabe, and probably Keita Bates-Diop all on minimums is like a haul. I think that's probably the 3 best minimum contracts that got signed so far. And the Suns got all of them. Does that change how I feel about them as a team? Probably not. But I still respect, what they've been up to. I don't know.
This does nothing for me. Congrats. You guys did the best that you could have with an awful scenario that you put yourselves into. I mean, these are all solid guys. I saw what Josh Okogie and Damian Lee looked like last year with the Suns. Eric Gordon is a good shooter, so that's good. That's good. Always good to have a veteran. Watanabe is a great 3-point shooter, and Kevin Durant loves him, so I guess that's great. Eubanks, I kind of liked Eubanks, but I also saw a lot of Portland Twitter
they were celebrating. They were celebrating.
So, bro, I don't really know. I don't know how I feel about this. I mean, I do know how I feel about this, and what I feel about this is they need to improve their bench, and they don't have a good bench, and they still don't have a good bench. So, yeah, I don't know. Shout out to the Suns, I guess.
I mean, I really think like again, of their options, given the situation they put themselves into, these were by far the best options, like Aaron Gordon, Watanabe, Bates Diop. I think Damian Lee is not that good. Can't play playoff minutes. Didn't play very many playoff minutes last year or with the Warriors 2 years ago, to be honest. I think Okogie's pretty good, but like, he's like the eighth man. He's got he can't be your
Oh,
fifth. He can't be your fifth best guy. And it's like if we look outside of your top three guys, you have DeAndre Ayton as your fourth best guy and probably Cam Payne as your fifth best guy. And it's like
yeah,
Yuta Watanabe as your sixth man sounds a lot worse than Yuta Watanabe as your ninth man. Like if Yuta Watanabe is your eighth guy in a playoff series, you're probably fine. Right now, he might be their fifth best player. And like I really wanted him on
yeah,
the Warriors as I wanted Eric Gordon. And I think those guys can give them minutes. I don't think it's gonna be enough minutes.
yeah. And you wanted them because they make sense because you guys have a starting six, even starting seven, starting eight. They can be that for you. But yeah,
Uh,
congrats to the Suns, I guess.
Totally agree. Rockets, I just want to do a little recap on the Rockets. They really shook up their whole team and such this offseason. So they obviously bring in Ime Udoka to be their head coach. Incoming, we have Amen Thompson in the draft, Cam Whittemore in the draft, Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, Jock Landale, who we covered shortly at the beginning. They also brought in Jeff Green on a 1 year, $6 million contract. On the way out, they ship out, KJ Martin, Ty Washington, Josh Christopher, Usman Garuba. All guys that I kind of like who are young guys, but it seems like they kind of had enough with the youth movement. I think they might have gone overboard a bit. The second round picks for Martin and they just salary dumped Garuba and Ty Washington. That felt like a lot, but they definitely have a better team on paper than last year. That cannot be argued.
Yeah, they totally do. I like the Jeff Green move too. You bring in now you have two vets in Fred and Jeff Green who have won chips, so they know how to get it done. I ain't got too much to say about the rest of all that, but yeah, it's an interesting team. Well, it's a little odd, but we'll see. We'll see how it works, I guess.
I think it's I will say, I think it's a really good situation for Men Thompson to develop. I'm a little bit worried about Jalen Green because I look around in this team. I'm like, okay, you paid Dylan Brooks 20 mil a year. That's like minutes Jalen Green's not getting. Like Fred VanVleet, he's going to play his 35 minutes. Amen Thompson,
Yeah.
he's tall, but he's kind of more of a point guard / shooting guard than he is a small forward. Like, I'm a little bit worried about Jalen Green. The clock is now ticking on him. I also wonder if KPJ is still on this team next year. I assume he will be, but if he is, he's not playing the 35 minutes a game he was last year. So that's a little interesting. Cavs, Max Drew signed a trade, 4 years, $64 million. He cashes out after an up and down playoff performance, but a good few years with the Heat. Chetty Osman goes the other way. Karis LeVert gets extended 2 years, $32 million. Thought that was good. George Niang, 3 years, 26, and Ty Jerome for 2 years, $5 million. They needed a bench overhaul. They kind of did overhaul their bench. I still don't think it's good enough. I don't know about you, Anthony.
It might move the needle a little bit for them because you mentioned it. The small forward position for them was where they weren't getting it done. You get LeVert back for 2 for 32, which is a solid deal. At least, especially because it's only 2 years. I think it's a bit of an overpay for Strus, considering what his finals looked like. He was kind of up and down, but they do have a lot of great players on the Cavs, so he might have more of an opportunity to kind of carve out his role. He is only 26, 27. But I do like Niang for 3 for 26. Watching him against the Celtics, he was a guy that I really respected, and I think Ty Jerome is a really solid pickup. So overall, maybe they slightly up, but they did get deeper, and that's what hurt them against the Knicks.
Yeah, no, I actually really like all these moves. I still don't think they're good enough to really, really make noise, but I think these are positive steps. I mean, getting Max Strus when you're over the cap, they basically use their MLE, mid-level exception, to kind of bring in Max Strus, and then they made it a sign-in trade to actually make it happen and lose Chetty, because they need to lose salary in that deal. And they needed to find a trade partner willing to do that, which they did. I don't think there were that many players who are as qualified as Max Strus at that price who are going to be available specifically via sign and trade, which is what they were able to do. I thought think it's a great move. Great offseason from the Cavs. I'm not a LeVert believer, but they now, again, they have other options instead of having to play LeVert. And he was honestly not even that bad last year, as much as I'm not a believer in him.
Yeah, it's just good to be able to trade minutes with a guy like Strus who's been in the fire.
Yeah, and then like if Poro's still there, like see how he's doing and etc. Like, go from there. Lakers. We actually, we already kind of talked about this. We don't need to cover
Yeah.
the Lakers again. My bad.
Good for them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, then we can just really covering it really quickly. OKC signs 2 international guys. Vezenkov, who I believe was the EuroLeague MVP last year, goes to Sacramento Kings on a 3 years, $20 million deal. Some big wins for EuroLeague guys. Just fun to see. Just wanted to talk about that just really quickly. Anthony, if you don't have anything to add, you're good. But.
And I mean, it's always good to see. I think more and more like EuroLeague guys are coming into the NBA and carving out roles for themselves, and it's always tough to imagine like kind of how they're going to play in this league. But I think we're seeing more and more frequently. There's just a lot of guys that come over from Europe and they ball out. Also, real quick, shout out OKC legend Victor Oladipo coming home. So that
Yes.
another little wrinkle for the veteran presence in the locker room.
Yeah, so we still don't. Yeah, we still have no idea who's going to be on the OKC roster. They like added 2 guys. Chet's back from injury. Oladipo's got traded there. Who's the Mavs? They salary dumped Bertans also to OKC, right?
Right.
So OKC added a bunch of guys. I don't know how they're going to go into the season with like 19 roster spots, but they'll have some fun because some random people are going to get cut off that team, which is going to be weird, but so be it. Pacers. So Pacers. I just want to cover this. They re-sign Halliburton. They trade 2 second-round picks for Obi Toppin to the Knicks, which that shocked me. I really am a believer in Obi Toppin. I feel like he can kind of shoot, gives you spacing, and he's like an active player. Not always the best defender, but he's very active. They get him for 2 second-round picks. I wanted him on the Warriors. I think I would have probably been down for like a just straight Kuminga first Obi Toppin flip. That's also because the fit on the Warriors for what we need is kind of good. But I thought that was a great trade. They get Bruce Brown. They picked Joris Walker. I mean, good offseason. I was very impressed by the Pacers.
Yeah, solid for the Pacers. They weren't on my radar for a team that was going to make moves, and they made some moves. I thought Obi Toppin was great for the Knicks in the playoffs, and especially during the stretch run last year. Really kind of shook off a lot of that early career talk that was going on about like, is he able to reach his potential as a 8th pick or as an 8th pick. And so yeah, shout out to the Pacers, man. They're going to be a fun, exciting team to watch this season. I know they're going to cause the Celtics some headaches. I can see it already.
Yeah, no, and they kind of kept their old guys too, so they kind of just added 3 guys, like a pretty good core. So I'm pretty down with that. Magic, they get Joe Ingles. I believe they also signed someone else who I'm blanking out on. Anthony, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I do think just again for veteran presence and for shooting, which were I think a couple of the areas where they struggled last year. I think this is going to be huge because I do think that they might be trying to make a push for the playoffs this season. So I think they're ready. They have a fantastic 2nd-year player, and so I think this is a perfect fit for that kind of for what they need from him. So
yeah. I mean, I think he's I don't think he's amazing. But he comes in, older guy. He can ball handle, which is something that I don't know if you've noticed. They kind of like all their guys being able to ball handles in some way, shape, or form. So I like the fit. I don't think the Magic are going to be that good. They might do a little plan push just like they did this year. But I don't think this moves the needle that much. I feel like they re-signed someone or they signed someone too. I'm blanking out on. So that's kind of bothering me right now, but so be it. Last topics really quickly. The Kings, they did nothing. We talked about this, but the Bulls really did nothing. The Bulls added Javon Carter, who I really like. 3 years, $20 million. They're going to get a $10 million disabled player exception from Lonzo Ball, but they re-signed Kobe White. They re-signed Vucevic. I think a Zach LaVine trade could be on the way. I think they want to save some assets. LaVine gets traded. They'll figure that out later. I just can't. And if it's not coming, that's almost even a bigger issue. Where are they going? What are they doing?
Yeah. Congrats to the Bulls. You're officially in the what are we doing, where are we going type of team that we've seen for we this is the Wizards from the last few seasons. Like yeah, I just don't get it. You know, they'll win high 30s, low 40s games. They'll be in the play-in conversation once again. Uh, the re-signs in the abstract seem fine. Javon Carter and Kobe White re-signs seem good in the abstract, but with the direction that this team is going, which doesn't really feel like much of a direction, doesn't really make sense. So yeah, tough on the Bulls.
And I think they already had Io DeSumno who's like literally a restricted free agent, I think, right now. And it's like you're gonna bring Javon Carter. That feels a little bit redundant right there. I know Lonzo's hurt, but like kind of felt like you could just give an Io like 30 minutes a game and just gone from
Yeah.
there. Um
I hope.
I really Ayo, ayo. But yeah, I really think a Levine trade is coming, whether it's this like I could see it happening sooner rather than later, but I do think like over the next year, I just really be shocked. He's their fastest route towards replenishing all the assets, and potentially you could still be semi-competitive with a team of whoever you traded for in the Levine deal, plus like DeRozan, Vucevic, all those other guys. I just feel bad for Bulls fans, man. They've had no luck. They were good for once after MJ, and it was D Rose, and these teams are just not inspiring. You go into each year kind of running it back, and it's like
Yeah. Yeah. Let's get this bread. Ha 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 ha. And then sad.
yeah,
So I
I,
feel bad for Kenny Beacom. Kenny Beecham. What's his name?
yeah. Kenny Beecham, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I respect him for being a Bulls fan and just it stinks.
yeah, and that's why he has his brand called Enjoy Basketball because he can't enjoy the Bulls,
Yeah.
so he has to enjoy the
Yeah.
sport.
Yeah. He's gonna be an NBA. Yeah.
Yeah. Last thing, I think, or second to last thing, really quick. Wemby, he's playing in the summer league. That's fully announced. I'm hype about that. I think it's exciting. We were talking a few podcasts ago how we didn't think he was going to play in the summer league. Now he is, but he's missing out on FIBA. I think that's dope. I think that's great. Shout out Wemby, just going to play all the time, and hopefully he doesn't get hurt. But he hasn't really been injury prone before this at all. So fingers crossed, and shout out Wemby for continuing kind of that tradition of top players playing in the summer league as much as they can.
Right. Yeah. I think it's great. I'm really excited. Is it tonight or tomorrow? Tomorrow. The California Classic starts. Mark that on
Yeah,
your calendars. 3rd and 5th is they're playing in Sacramento. July 3rd, 5th, and 6th, they're also playing in Salt Lake City. So we got some games. Winner. Ooh, actually, AO.
he's not.
The
He's
Spurs are
not
playing.
playing. He's not playing
Oh,
in
he's
the
not playing.
Yeah, he's not
Oh,
playing
okay.
in the he's not playing, I think, in the first game or the first two games. And then I think when it gets to the Las
Okay.
Vegas Summer League, that's when he's fully gonna be
Vegas.
rejoining
Okay,
the
so next Friday is what we're looking out for.
I think it might be against Portland. I could be wrong. Is July 9th? Is that what it is? I could be wrong.
July 7th, Portland plays Houston, so that's a great one. On this, they also play Charlotte, so that'll be fun. Top two picks going at it. And then, but I think they play. Let's see. Well, I'm sure they'll play, but regardless, I'm with you. I think it's awesome that he's playing, and I'm really excited to see him just go up against all these guys. So yeah,
Yeah, do you
it's
remember
awesome. It's very exciting. Yeah.
was it when Zion was in the summer league and he had that play against Kevin Knox where he ripped the ball out of his hands and like I just remember I screamed at my TV. I'm watching that. Like I'm hoping like we get something, just like a crazy step back three. I don't even care
I
too
think
much about anything else, but like I kind of want the hype and see how he's like.
I think we're gonna get one of those moments where we're like, oh wow, oh he's way
Oh,
better.
that's
Like
guy.
he's
Yeah.
yeah,
I think
hey,
so.
okay, wait, why are you playing in this? Like, thanks, but so yeah, it's great. Yo, this is just a shout, but do you remember Taylor Horton Tucker a couple seasons ago not going and playing in the summer league? And
Oh
he kind of
yes.
just like looked like that, dapping everybody up, and then he was just not good at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, shout out Jazz legend.
Yeah, literally Lakers legend. Lakers untradeable trade piece. Like insane. Last thing, still waiting on a Harden trade. Kind of curious on that. Clippers probably need to move pretty soon.
Right.
Woj was on TV saying that the Sixers are prepared to not trade him. So I guess this is really like a Harden trade demand. Daryl Morey's not a guy you're gonna bully and push around, but I also think if they can get depth for Harden, they should do it.
Well, they also talked about potentially trading Tyrese Maxey, no?
Well, they're not extending they're not giving him his max extension this year because it gives them a little bit more flexibility next year, and they'll probably just re-sign him to the max extension, whatever he gets. Yeah, because it's a rookie extension, so if they sign it now, it would kick in after next season anyways, so they can just wait till after next to re-sign him to that. It gives them a little bit more flexibility with like cap space next year. I don't think Maxey's going anywhere, to be honest. I'd be pretty shocked there.
Not.
Yeah,
he better. What are they doing if they do that? That's terrible.
Yeah, I think Maxey's better than like all the guys that they're trying to acquire, like half of them,
Literally, yeah, you're getting 70 cents on the dollar if you're trading Maxey. But I will say my one guess was, are they maybe waiting to see what happens with the Damian Lillard trade? Not necessarily because the teams involved in those trades like are even crossing over with each other. I know there's been some talk about Dame to Philly a little bit. But I am curious if, like you'd mentioned, if there's a third team involved, maybe they're waiting to kind of see where that moves kind of shake out or whatever. And then they can make their decision from there. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's like a situation where like, okay, they ship Harden out, but like they don't take that much cap space back directly from the Clippers. Maybe the Clippers send some stuff elsewhere. They get a trade exception for Harden that they use to be the third team in a Tyler Hero deal, maybe in that like Tyler Hero Dame deal. Yeah, I could totally see that happening. I think more likely than not, 2 weeks from now, we're gonna get the whole Clippers bench was traded for James Harden, I think, and then I think that'll be good for both teams. I think it'll also be good for Maxey, who's gonna be disgusting next year. I think he's disgusting already. But yeah,
definitely.
Cool. With that, I think we wrapped up everything. These are the first 2 days, right, of free agency. If you're watching this like 5 hours after we posted it, and like LeBron James got traded to the Indiana Pacers for Miles Turner, like I'm so sorry. Like I don't know what to tell you, bro. We couldn't tell the future. It takes a little while to edit and post these. So hopefully Woj and Shams don't do anything for the next like 2 hours just for us. And then you guys can see this and then see how wrong we were with a lot of our predictions. So
please guys, don't do anything. Don't make any trades yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, with that, thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that was very long. Yeah. So anyways, thanks guys for listening. We love you a lot. You guys are the best. You guys are the bomb.com. And we'll be here covering all the off-season moves throughout the summer. No doubt by the time we post our next podcast, will it be Friday? Will it be Thursday? Everybody, we're working now. Max has a fire job. I got a fire job. So everything's up in the air. And until then, no matter what happens, we'll be spitting hoops. We hope you guys are spitting hoops, because when everybody's spitting hoops, the world is a little bit of a better place. See you guys next time.